And poet Mary Oliver, who's one of my favorite poets who died about a year ago, said this: the only question is how to love this world. The only question is how to love this world. And a Cherokee, Scott Momaday, said this: we humans must come again to a moral comprehension of the earth and air. We must live according to the principle of a land ethic. The alternative is that we shall not live at all. You see, I believe that how we address the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, must be seen within the overall context of the climate crisis in which we live. This moment of massive disruption opens our imaginations to radical new frameworks of how humankind lives together and lives together within Mother Earth, having respect for creation. This is our moment. This is a moment like no other. And we all know that dangerous crises often provide opportunities for new ways of being and acting within the amazing gift of life, within the intricate web and beauty of Mother Earth. We are becoming aware of how our earthly home is fragile, resilient, complex, stunning. Yet it is also sick and wounded and mainly brokenhearted. She is being pushed to her limits. Indeed, Mother Earth is being pushed beyond her limits. Humankind as consumer and plunderer has replaced humankind as citizen and spiritual being. The devastating virus, COVID-19, has stopped us in our tracks right around the world. It has initiated a huge pause in business as usual. And in the midst of death and fear, frenzy and bewilderment, we had this moment to rethink our systems, our beliefs, our ways of being together within our earthly home. We can imagine a different framework, and we can imagine a different future than the future that we've been forecasting up to this point. So this moment, I believe, is very precious. And we are privileged to live in this exciting moment in the history of humankind. I believe we live in the decade, actually, the decade of struggle for the soul of humankind. This is the decade where action or non-action will determine the kind of world our children and grandchildren will inherit. Therefore, this is an exciting time to be alive. This is our moment. Now, I know that this crisis, both the pandemic and the climate crisis, is a matter of science. It's a matter of medicine and health, of innovation, of economics and politics, of jobs, engineering, and social systems, and much, much more. It involves just about every aspect of human life. Many people, I'm grateful to acknowledge, across disciplines and from around the world, are responding with intellect, with passion, with new ways of cooperation and personal commitment to finding solutions to the virus and suggesting different frames of living for the future. But I believe, as some of you know who have heard me speak before, that it just as important in this crisis, within the climate crisis, is a matter of spirituality and ethics. It is also about Mother Earth and her health and her future, including all of her interdependent creatures, including us. Now, I attend, as everybody on this call and in this meeting do, I attend many conferences and meetings where all the talk is about humankind. It's about us. how smart we are and how all the progress in technology and innovations that we haven't yet seen yet that will allow us to bounce back and do business as usual. I hear that all the time. Oh, well, we just have this thing and it'll solve it, or it'll be one step towards getting back to business as usual. It will solve the climate crisis. Well, I'm encouraged to read and to hear a great variety of people, especially right now, pleading that we do not go back to business unusual. It's sort of like a rubber band that we stretched it out here, and some people are hoping it will bounce back to life before the crisis. I hope they're wrong, and I hope that does not happen. And although we are imagining a new economics and politics and other systems, we're trying to think differently and think in new ways. I say, bring on that new thinking as quickly as possible. Well, within the embracing reality of the climate crisis, this pivotal moment is not only about us. It's not only about humankind. As Indigenous neighbors teach us, it is about all our relations. It is about the nature of the world. It's about the natural world. It's about Mother Earth, on whom all life depends. And I believe that at the core of our response is spirituality and ethics. To me, the basic spiritual questions are these. Who do we think we are anyway? Who are we as human beings? And who do we think we are? How are we to live with respect in creation? And how are we to live in communion with all of life? These are deeply spiritual questions that I think we need to address. And I think faith communities and others have an essential role in helping our society grapple with this moment of truth-telling, because we are at a moment of truth-telling. I believe that all spiritual traditions, many rooted thousands of years ago, who have been seeking justice and love and peace and living in harmony with Mother Earth and each other. All of those traditions have something special to contribute in this particular moment. The pandemic challenges us to rethink and redesign the economic, the political, and the social frameworks within which we live. So besides being a spiritual matter, who are we as human beings? This is a deeply ethical question as well. And for me, a key ethical question at the heart of our collective reflection is consumption. Simply put, we are plundering and consuming the earth for our entitlements and our self-indulgence. I believe our hyperconsumption underlies the reality of the climate crisis. It's interesting to me that in the short time that we've been in lockdown under the pandemic, that with the travel and manufacturing and other things greatly reduced, that we are amazed at the clean air and the clean waters. Watch people in Vienna being able to watch the fish. They haven't seen the fish in the canals for forever. And people are kind of amazed at, oh, is this what it's like without all the greenhouse gases in the air? And even the animals returning and reclaiming the natural world. I was talking to some friends in Banff last week, and they said, it's terrific. The animals are back in the town site. And they're wandering around now, coming back to what we displaced them from. In the Guardian Weekly not so long ago, John Vidal said, the way to avoid ecological disaster is to starve the beast of consumption and consumerism. I think he's quite right. Some of you have heard me talk before, some of you too many times probably, remember my example that I get angry all the time with this example. I've done it for years, but I still get angry whenever I think about it. The ads that Toyota had over a year ago, an ad campaign called the No Limits event, saying there's no limits. Of course there are limits. Mother Earth has very clear limits. And contrary to our behavior and what Toyota would like us to do, there are limits to Mother Earth's capacity to indulge all of our desires. And of course, the ads that really get me going are the Jeep ads with the same sort of idea, showing their vehicles ripping through forests, bouncing over streams, and motoring up mountaintops, ripping apart the natural world. I don't know why those are not illegal. Actually, I have written to the environmental the advertising standards people, and they told me those ads are perfectly legal. Well, they're totally unethical, even if they are illegal. It drives me nuts, obviously. Actually, there's one word that I would use to describe those ads, and that is obscene. Human entitlement, human self-indulgence, and they fuel human arrogance. What they say is if you have money, you can do whatever you want. And many ads, from clothing to cars, say, you deserve it. You deserve all the things that you think you need. Our system is built on that. That's part of what we've got to deal with. Anyway, in his wonderful encyclical on care for our common home, Pope Francis says this: people may well have a growing ecological sensitivity, but it has not succeeded in changing their harmful habits of consumption. It's a wonderful document. So for me, the ethical question, I've said what I think the spiritual ones are, the ethical question for us is, to what does Mother Earth think we are entitled? We think we're entitled to this, that, and the other. To what does Mother Earth, on whom we depend, think we are entitled? Currently, our economic systems require continuous growth and ever-expanding consumption of the earth to feed human desires and demand. Well, there are limits to Mother Earth's capacity to be mined, ripped apart, and exploited. There are many, actually, there are all kinds of creative and workable alternatives that we could implement if we chose. Green New Deals in various forms, to circular economics, to Kate Rayworth's Donut Economics, great book, Donut Economics by Kate Rayworth. Eco-commoning, which some of us are trying to promote. Our ravishing, you see, of Mother Earth cannot continue. Our present system has also resulted in extreme wealth for the few, contrasted with the debilitating poverty for the many. And again, there are many workable proposals to guarantee a sustainable living for each person. And actually, the pandemic has exposed for all to see the vulnerability of major populations throughout the world. This is a transformative moment for our economic and governing systems. So, as we search the human heart for a sustainable way into the future, will these spiritual and ethical dimensions find voice? Will they find voice among all the other voices that seek to create change? Because I believe that they are central to the challenges of the human soul. Unless we draw upon these spiritual and ethical dimensions of life, the future will indeed be grim. You see, we have the experience, we have the resources, we have the stories. Yeah, we have the stories, and we have the ceremonies. We know that some of the key words we need to remember as we engage in this special moment are words such as gratitude, grief, lament, humility, justice, beauty, ceremony, ritual, love, wonder. Each of these words obviously is worth exploring and worth our attention because they are very rich in our spiritual and ethical heritage. I love this quote from a Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, who said this: "What we need to do is to hear within us the sounds of the earth crying." A spiritual revolution is needed if we are going to confront the ecological challenges we face, says Thich Nhat Hanh. Well, linked to how we treat Mother Earth is how we treat the most vulnerable and most oppressed of our human family. In a very profound way, how we treat the service providers, as we are learning during the COVID-19 crisis, as the personal support workers in our nursing homes has been exposed by the pandemic. The veil has been lifted. The people who help grow and harvest our food, those who care for the elderly and the very young are not paid a living wage. And for people who never knew that before, the veil has been lifted. And we see actually how we treat the people who provide these fundamental human services. The pandemic has also revealed how interdependent we are with all people and Mother Earth herself. I'm almost finished. We belong to the whole human family, who belong to the vast, intricate web of all life. So this moment presents us with a unique opportunity, a very special moment, what Al Gore calls, this is a great phrase, the acceleration of a compelling moral purpose. Rabbi Abraham Heschel reminds us, very simple. He says, the goal of life should be to live in radical amazement, reflecting the wonder and beauty of the world in which we live. So, may we pause, lament, grieve, reflect, and then may we open our imagination and our spiritual and ethical selves and our hearts as well as our minds to chart a future rooted in our common life and in the natural world, in Mother Earth, on whom we depend. And then if we do that, I believe that our struggle for the soul of humankind will be able to be celebrated with joy, with hope, solidarity, with love, and perhaps even with radical amazement. Thank you.